Hello, starseeds, humans, hybrids, aliens, robots, anyone watching this. Hello! I am so grateful that you are here tuning in, that you are allowing me to transmute these higher dimensional frequencies to you. Today we are talking about Lemuria and Atlantis, these ancient civilizations of planet Earth. It is going to be a very magical video because I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I have received the clarity that it's important to discuss these civilizations because we are at a very similar time in history right now on planet Earth. And if more and more people are aware of the Lemurian and Atlantean civilizations, we can hopefully learn from history. And further, these civilizations are not talked about in textbooks, not taught in school. It's not common knowledge of humanity's heritage with these civilizations. So that is another reason that I believe I'm being influenced to share this with you, because maybe you might tell one other person and maybe that person might tell two other people, and then we can start a ripple effect of sharing this information and uplifting and upgrading. So I'm going to tune in and see where to begin. Yes, as always, I am acting as a crystal, as a vehicle of higher dimensional information that is not mine. It is not coming from my brain. It is coming from my guides, the council that I communicate with. And these are beautiful, wonderful, regal, serene, peaceful, loving beings. So that loving five-dimensional energy is transmuting through my body as a vessel through the screen into you, uplifting and upgrading your DNA, shifting you into the highest potential of yourself, reminding your soul that you are a star being. So let's all shift and upgrade as we learn about Lemuria and Atlantis. Okay, I'm going to start with Lemuria. Lemuria. Yeah, so it's worth saying that this information and how I'm going to portray it is merely my experience, my downloads, my information, my images, my connection with my beings. I'm not preaching it as absolute truth. So take it for what it is and accept or deny what feels good or what doesn't. Lemuria. Lemuria was one of the first civilizations on planet Earth. You know how I've talked about higher dimensional beings creating Earth as a divine experiment to see if they could put source energy into a physical incarnation? Lemuria was like the first test run of that. Lemuria was an incredibly beautiful utopian crystal civilization. The humans that lived there were not fully human. They were like star beings, right? They were this divine embodiment of this experiment of like pure source energy in a physical construct. They had 12-strand DNA. They had 14-strand DNA. I have been hearing lately that it's actually 14 strands that they had rather than 12. So imagine that. We right now are these wonderful, beautiful, intelligent beings with 2 strands of DNA. Imagine 12 more strands on top of that. We were incredibly infinite beings at this time. The comparison that they give me is like the movie Avatar. These Avatarian beings lived in symbiosis with planet Earth, and that is how Lemurians lived. So they were in a mutual loving relationship with Mother Earth. They were Earth's children, and their society was highly, highly advanced. They used crystal energy, which means that they could construct the most incredible buildings, sculptures, UFOs out of crystal energy. Okay, and they did that by using telepathy to transmute their intention of creation through the crystals, and it would create, it would manifest. And the most common form of this creation was group energy, group prayer, group source. So like groups of the Lemurians would get together and they would all have the same intention and meditation at the same time, and their energy would transmute through the crystals and create the buildings and create the structures and create the pyramids, which I'm going to talk more about during the time of Atlantis. But this is just worth mentioning to show like the power of group prayer, the power of group energy. You know, we might not have fucking 12, 14 strand DNA right now, but we have a lot of people on the planet. And if we all came together with a core intention and meditation, like we could fucking change the world. That's a side note. So Lemuria, they used telepathic crystal energy and power to create this like utopian civilization. And they had all these little like really magical portal and dimensions in their civilization. So like an example that I'm seeing right now is like they had like lakes, for example, with the unaided eye would look like a lake, but then the Lemurians could walk into the lake and it would be a portal into another like dimension of Earth, like inner Earth for sure, but also just like going into a lake and like stepping into a forest. Like I just like see that image of like them stepping into like crystal water and then like coming out the other side of it into a totally different dimension of a forest. So the land and the energy on the planet during Lemuria was so magical. I imagine this is probably when like unicorns and fairies and gnomes and elves and all the elementals were like really flourishing during this time, because the whole structure of Earth was in unison with each other. All the beings were symbiotic together. There was no power or greed or wealth or fear on the planet yet at this time. This was before the asteroid hit, which I've talked about in other videos. So it was just like perfection, divine perfection on planet Earth. It was heaven on Earth, right? And another interesting aspect about Lemurians is that they were immortal. They could live forever. They did not age. They had crystal upgraded DNA, right? So like they didn't have to deal with their skin wrinkling or their health deteriorating. They could live for however long they wanted. Now, that's not to say they lived on Earth forever, because a lot of them chose to carry on to their next mission on another planet, but they were immortal. And this is going to be important. I'm going to mention that later about their immortality. So I just want to paint the visual that like Lemuria was just this like incredible utopian on Earth, and the people were highly advanced and highly loving and community. It was a very strong community-based civilization. Ooh, and I just got the information that that women were the leaders during Lemuria. Women were the leaders. They were the council heads. They were the masters. They were the leaders. And men were the caretakers of the family. Men were the one that did the hunting and the food preparations and taking care of the children. And you might laugh, you know, to see how different our society has become now. But the reason that women were the leaders and were entrusted to be the leaders, and why the men like wanted them to be the leaders, is because they had high emotional intelligence, and they were able to make the best decisions for a peaceful world because they were emotionally intelligent and they were operating from their heart chakra. All of the beings during this time were operating from their heart chakra, but the women especially were like so in tune with Mother Earth that they could ultimately make the best decisions for the people and the Earth. So I just think that was very interesting. One of Earth's most, here come the burps, one of Earth's most highly sophisticated civilizations was run by women. Just saying. Okay, so is there anything else about Lemuria? Okay, this is interesting. Apparently Lemurians did not have sex. They could co-create through the telepathic like crystal energy, so they didn't have to have sex to procreate. And apparently sex came into play when the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans came into play. So we're gonna shift into that storyline now. So we have the Lemurians as the like original civilization of divine humanity on planet Earth, right? Earth is heaven. However, then all of these beings from other planets, you know, the reptilians, I'm just gonna specifically say the reptilians because they're the species that fucked everything up. But all of these beings from other planets started coming down to Earth and inhabiting Earth, and realizing that they didn't want to treat this as a vacation, which is why they originally came. So when you think about it, like these other dimensional beings came to planet Earth just to experience it temporarily, and then they were supposed to go back to their planet or their dimension. But they got here and they realized like they didn't want to be here temporarily. They wanted to be here long term. So they started staying here and mating with the Lemurians and the other Agarthian human beings that were on the planet at this time. And what's super interesting, and I don't know if I should say this because I feel like I'm going to fluff a lot of feathers with this, but I'm getting this image that like all of these beings that started coming to the planet that were not from Earth were all these different colors. And when they started mating with the Lemurians and the Agarthian human beings, that's what created like the differences in our skin colors. Some beings were purple, some beings were white, some beings were red, some beings were yellow, some beings were green. They were all colors, right? And so as the bloodlines continued, they like created the races and the skin colors that we now have, which I think is interesting. And the download that I just got was the purple beings specifically are seen in traces now with the babies that are born with like the big purple patches on their faces, or like the big purple birthmarks on their bodies, or like big red birthmarks. They are the ones that have lineage to the purple beings and the red beings that came down to planet Earth. So this is a very interesting idea. Okay, so then we start having all these beings come down to Earth, right? And that ultimately forms like the Atlantean civilization. These like highly developed beings that were in this really highly advanced civilization, but made up of beings that were not native to Earth, whereas Lemurians were native to Earth. They were part of the divine experience. Atlanteans were not. Okay, and I'm gonna say the term Anunnaki. My understanding is that the Anunnaki were part of the Atlantean civilizations, and they were not good. They were, you know, the reptilian tribe. They were the dark force. And I'm speaking of this lately because I know a lot of people believe that the Anunnaki are the ones that created humans, but that is not the information that I have received. So the reason why it's important to mention that the Atlantean civilization was not native to Earth is because the Atlanteans started becoming very jealous of the Lemurians because of the Lemurians' immortality. So the Atlanteans, over time, started viewing the Lemurians as their enemies because they were jealous that they could be immortal and the Atlanteans were not. So, okay, I'm gonna say this, but I'm saying it lightly. I guess they were so jealous of the immortality that is when they started creating like multiple gods. You know, we have so many different gods and so many different texts and so many different cultures. And apparently the Atlanteans created all of these gods because then the Agarthian humans and the humans that they started taking control of would pray to the gods, aka the Atlanteans. And then all of this group collective of people praying to these gods gave the Atlanteans everlasting energy. Like, it was the closest that they could come to immortality, if I'm understanding this correctly. Okay, so the Atlanteans created all of these different gods that the, like, Agarthian humans would pray to, because the more that they would pray to these gods, the more that these Atlanteans would receive that energy, almost like energy vampires, and it would, like, revamp them and allow them to live a lot longer and be a lot stronger than they were initially. So that's a very interesting concept. Okay, so not only were they jealous of the immortality, but they started becoming so jealous of how divinely in tune the Lemurians were, and how much crystal energy that they had, that they ultimately, the dark forces of Atlantis decided that they wanted to destroy Lemuria. Lemuria was a threat to their power. Because remember, when Atlantis formed, this is when the fear frequency came to the planet. This is when reptilians started realizing that they could control humans. And their jealousy of the Lemurians drove them to want to be the most powerful species on the planet. They wanted to take out any threat of their power. So the way that they did this, which is, again, very interesting and wild, but I'm going to say it. Apparently, Earth originally had 2 moons. And the moons kept the Earth in perfect balance, right? We had perfect ocean tides, perfect weather, because the moons kept us balanced with the 2 moons. So the Atlanteans devised a plan that they were going to use their laser energy. Okay, so the Lemurians were using crystal energy and the Atlanteans were using laser energy. And the Atlanteans made a plan to use their laser energy to destroy one of the moons to offset the tides of the ocean to flood Lemuria. Wild. So they did that. Now we only have 1 moon. And they flooded Lemuria. And like, when I tap into like the Lemurian experience of this, it's that like suddenly all of these Lemurians like felt this like really dark fear frequency energy start taking over their land. And a lot of them fled to the portals in the lakes to go to like this other dimension, this inner earth. But those that didn't flee in time were wiped out, and Lemuria was wiped out. And oh my gosh, this is so extensive. Okay, so then the Lemurians that did go through the portals and did make it to Middle Earth have been in Middle Earth and make up the Telos community, Telos. And apparently that they have been in there for thousands of years, waiting until humanity was once again at a place of evolution so that they could resurface. And apparently they are going to be resurfacing soon. But what soon means, like, who knows, because they're not operating in human time. But that's an interesting perspective. It's like there's all of these beings in Middle Earth. I'm going to do a whole video on Middle Earth. It's so fascinating. But the Lemurians went to Middle Earth when the Atlanteans flooded them, and they're still in there. And now we're going to get back to Atlantis. So Atlantis wiped out Lemuria. Okay, now Lemuria is gone. Now we have Atlantis. Now, Atlantis was a very highly civilized society as well. And it wasn't all evil. There were a lot of Atlanteans that were like beautiful, benevolent beings who wanted to use crystal energy for the good, and they wanted to help planet Earth, and they chose to stay here on planet Earth because they loved the planet. They loved Gaia. It was the reptilians and the Anunnaki and the lower dimensional beings that were here that ultimately decided that they wanted to be in control. And so as things unfolded in the Atlantean civilization, their intellect was so highly developed that they started doing really fucking weird experiments, such as breeding human DNA with animal DNA and creating human animals. Okay, and the reason that they did that was it was like their way of creating a subdivision of humans to act as their slaves. So this is gonna sound wild, but like they crossbred. It's interesting because I'm hearing like genetically modified organisms. It's exactly what we're doing right now with our food industry, but they were doing it with species during Atlantis. Wow, that's wild. So like the example I'm getting is they crossbred humans with fish and created mermaids so that they could have beings to go do all their fishing. You know, they like enslaved these mermaid beings to like go get their fish every day and bring them back and have this like wonderful bounty of food. They crossbred humans and horses, which is why like in mythical stories you see like the centaurs, and they did this to as a form of entertainment. They started putting the centaurs in like fighting arenas. I'm seeing the image of like fighting arenas where they would like pit these centaur beings against each other, and then these like elite Atlanteans would watch them for sport. So that's just like a really fucked up but interesting thought, is like they started melding humans and animals, and that is why a lot of these mythical creatures have been documented. They were real, but they were created from a not good intention. And I'm hearing that like it was at this point when the Atlanteans started experimenting with DNA that things started taking a turn for the worse, and that the powerful elite Atlanteans, reptilians, etc., wanted to wipe out any Atlanteans that were not aligned with their mission of power and greed and control. And yeah, and they were starting to test nuclear energy as well, which we're doing now and we've been doing for a long time. Well, it's the parallels are wild that I'm like literally I can see what was happening then and it directly matches to what is happening now. So things started getting really fucked up in Atlantis, okay? For lack of a better term, things were just fucked up because these high evolved beings were using their power for evil. And it was at this point when a higher dimensional council of beings, the ascended masters, the council of the fatherhood and sisterhood and brotherhood of beings, ultimately came together and had to make a decision about what to do because their divine experiment was becoming really out of control. And the way that the Atlanteans were fucking around with nuclear energy and crossbreeding DNA, etc., they were like dabbling in shit that was threatening the well-being of the earth. Like the nuclear energy they were involved with could obliterate the earth really fucking quick. So this council was like, we have to do something. We have to do something so that they don't obliterate this experiment we've been working on for thousands of years. Now, this is separate from when the asteroid hit the planet and they were like, well, we'll see what happens. This is later, okay? So this is now, they already let the asteroid happen. They saw what the fuck happened. And now they're like, well, if we don't make a decision, the Earth's going to be destroyed. We got to do something. So they ultimately orchestrated for Mother Earth to wipe out the Atlantean civilization with natural disasters. And what came was a massive flood. A bunch of earthquakes, a bunch of volcano eruptions, and a massive flood. And again, the Atlantean society was flooded and covered with water. And it's ironic because that's how they wiped out Lemuria, and now this is how they were wiped out. And again, a lot of Atlantean beings that were good and pure could feel the impending disaster coming. Like intuitively, they were so connected to Earth that they could feel that something was coming. So a lot of them went into Middle Earth as well. And a lot of them fled to Egypt. I'm hearing that Isis and there is another goddess. It will come to me. Her name came in and then left. But Isis was from the Atlantean Civilization, and she became a goddess in Egypt for like 600 years. She was there. So a lot of the sacred knowledge of Atlantis is in Egypt, because these higher dimensional beings who were good, who felt the impending disaster coming, knew that they had to save the ancient knowledge of the masters, right? So they fled in time to hide the information inside the pyramids and inside the ground. And that's super interesting. So, and that's a reason why when some people go to Egypt and they go into these pyramids, they get sick to their stomach, because the vibrational energy in the sacred knowledge that's hidden in the pyramid is vibrating at such a high level that a lot of beings vibrationally can't handle it and they get sick. That's wild. And also what I'm hearing is that the information is still there, and that the only way it can be unlocked and retrieved is if you're vibrating at the same high dimensional frequency that the ancient knowledge is vibrating at, almost like an energetic key. And unless you are upgraded energetically, you can't unlock the key or the portal that will give you access to that information. So what I'm hearing is like, it will never be found unless we evolve to a vibrational level where we can access it and unlock it. And if we don't, then it will not ever be found. And the reason for that is because they don't want that wisdom getting in the wrong hands again. So this wisdom is like crystal energy, how to cultivate crystal energy, how to be telepathic, how to create instant manifestation. They don't want any of this knowledge or these tools to be in the wrong hands ever again. So they put almost like an energetic field around the knowledge inside the pyramids so that it can only be retrieved and unlocked by benevolent beings. But they're saying that more and more knowledge is surfacing now, right now. That's a good sign. Okay, so where am I at right now in the timeline? We had Lemuria as the first like benevolent civilization, and then the Atlanteans wiped out Lemuria, and then the Atlanteans all ultimately got wiped out themselves because their intentions started skewing on the side of evil, and the good Atlantean beings fled to Egypt. And that's why a lot of sacred knowledge and power is in the pyramids. And what now? They said it is not just in the pyramids. It's all over the world. The Atlanteans that fled hid the knowledge in all of these like biosphere access points around the planet to, to not only keep it hidden until it got into the right hands, but also to keep the energy balanced in the planet. So these ancient teachings hold such high vibrational energy that they're actually keeping our planet in existence, because we're destroying our biosphere and our atmosphere so much that if we didn't have these this information, which is hidden in crystals I just got, so these crystals with this hidden information are keeping the planet balanced all around the world. Wow, like deep in the ground. And that they're saying we have more crystals in our earth than we could ever imagine. We just haven't found them yet. That's wild as well. Okay. And yes, more and more information is surfacing now because we are, okay, yes. We are now at that time in history where we are very similar to what was going on in Atlantis, where we have like highly developed human beings who are living from a heart-centered place and want the best for the world, right? We have communities popping up all over the world of off-grid sustainable energy and world leaders who are trying to spread the message of community and collection and peace. And we also have people on the planet and leaders on the planet who are really pushing the fossil fuel agenda and really pushing the fear frequency and really pushing humanity to believe that we have no power and that all of our power is outside of ourselves, and fucking around with genetically modified organisms. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but they're starting to splice our food with human DNA. I'm going to say that again. They're starting to splice plants with human DNA so that the plants will become more resistant to bugs, which means unless you see a label on your food that says no GMOs, you are ingesting GMOs, and you could be ingesting GMOs that have human DNA in them, which means you are eating yourself. That is fucking wild. This is way beyond a sci-fi movie. Okay, and I think that's why I was guided to share these civilizations with you, because we're there now. So they're bringing me back to the point that we have all these love light workers on the planet right now, but we also have all of these really fucking weird dark energy frequency beings who are fucking with our food supply, who are fucking with nuclear energy to such an extent that they could obliterate our planet. All it would take is like one fucking missile and a world war would happen and we would destroy ourselves. We are that close to like destruction. We are destroying the environment. We are pushing planet Earth to a point where she wants to fight back and start with these natural disasters again. So it's like these higher dimensional beings are screaming. They're begging in human terms, screaming, begging, that we don't make the same mistake that we did during Atlantis. Now, Atlantis is traced back to like 15,000 years ago, but it was even longer than that. So it's been a hot minute that we have arrived at this place again, but we're here. And it's like what I keep hearing is like, please choose the heart. 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 Choose love. It's so cliche, but like we're at that crossroads and I see it. Like I said, I wish I could like transmute the images from my head into yours, because I see it and it's like a fork in the road path, but one is like very, 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 very dark and shadowy, and one is like very light, high vibrational, and like we are there now. And this goes into the video I talked about 3D versus 5D, etc. Like we are splitting. There will be those of us that are light workers and those of us that like repeat karma a million fucking more times before we transcend. But that's besides the point. The point now is that we are at the Atlantean crux again. And we have the chance to learn from our past and take the higher road. And what I'm hearing is like there's a reason that a lot of people don't know about Atlantis, because the powers that be want to keep it secret. Because if we knew about Atlantis, if we learned about it in school, then we could maybe follow the idea that history repeats itself and we don't have to learn the same mistake a million times. We can resolve it. But how are we supposed to resolve it and take the higher road if we don't even know about it? Yeah, so this is merely the surface. This is merely the surface. I gave you minimal amount of details of these civilizations. because I think the point was that I just needed to spark this idea and this interest in you for you to now go do your own research. There are so many books about Lemuria. There are so many books about Atlantis. You can Google, you can go down the web of the infinite, the rabbit hole of the infinite web, but I also encourage you to order books. You know, at least books are written by people who have been studying these civilizations. You can't always trust what you read on the internet. Wild, right? Just as I'm speaking to you on the internet, you can't trust everything you find on the internet, but you can order books. And again, it's not like a book makes it true either, but it's a little bit more credible source and it will give you more information. It will teach you about these civilizations. And at the very least, these civilizations are just symbolic parallels to where we're at right now and the decisions we're making right now, and the way that you can make better decisions in your personal life based on what you know about these civilizations. So please, take some moments and go learn about them. And if you don't want to, then just maybe watch this video again and take some notes and find the parallels in our current society and figure out how you can play a part in adding to the light frequency, adding to the light energy, and not buying into the fear agenda. Because what these people are doing, what these elite beings, reptilians, etc. are doing right now is fucked up. Just like what they did during Atlantis. It's fucked up what they're doing. Okay? So, I guess that was the final message, that burp. Is there anything else? They're just saying, we love you, brothers and sisters. We love you. They love us. They want the best for us. They want us to live in a utopia. All right. I think that wraps this up for right now. If you have any questions, you can comment me or reach out to me on Instagram. And yeah, I'm really excited about where we're at right now. And I'm really excited that this ancient knowledge all over the world is surfacing. The more that we upgrade our vibrations, the more that we have access to it. That is so exciting to me. So I leave you with that excitement, and I leave you with love and the idea that we are stepping into a golden age, and it will be incredible if you choose to embody that. Embody the incredibleness. Yes, you are more powerful than fear. That is the last message of this video. And I love you so much, star beings.